Hello everyone, welcome back to my video. Today we're going to discuss about the topic called Java RMI. RMI means a remote method invocation. By the end of this video, you will understand what is RMI, how it works and why we use it. And as well as we're going to discuss about some component which can help you to build the RMI application. Okay. Let me start with some simple example in order to understand the RMI concept. Okay, so imagine you have been working in an office and you have a personal assistant sitting near to you, and whatever the jobs you want to perform, you can inform your assistant to complete it. So for an example, assume that you want to take a printout and you are instructing your assistant to complete the job. So immediately your assistants can complete it behalf of you, and that can be reported back to you. Okay, so this is like a normal method call in Java. So everything happens in the same computer like an office, because as I mentioned before, the manager and as well as your assistants who both are sitting in the same premises. Okay, so that is like a normal method call. So imagine your company opens another branch and your assistant shifted to that branch. So for an example, assume that your branch might be located in Mumbai or Bangalore or somewhere else. Okay, so your assistant's not in your premises, and he was shifted to another branch, and at the same time you want to give some work to that assistant, and telling that you want to take some reports and send the messages or something. Okay, so how do we make a call? Because as I mentioned before, he is not sitting in your premises, right? So how do we what you will do, you will call them on over the phone, or you can text to him by using some WhatsApp or any social media. You can text to him, and in order to convey the informations. Okay, so once he get the message, he can complete the work and he can reply back to you like saying that it's been done. Okay, so that's exactly the RMI does it in Java. Your program calls a method that is not in your computer, which might be located in another computer, maybe in another city or something, right? Actually the method was located in another computer, but still you can call a method like a normal method. That is called as a RMI. Okay, so let's come back to the definition. Look at here, what is RMI means? The remote method invocation allows an object running in one virtual machine, which means that a computer, to invoke a method on an object located in another JVM or another computer. Okay, so that is called RMI, which means that you are trying to make a call, actually it was located in another computer. Okay, that is called as a remote method invocation. Let's move on to the let's see, why do we need an RMI? Okay, earlier if you want to build a client server application, so assume that you want to develop an application which has a server and as well as a client. So client means requesting something to the server, and the server taking the request and performing some activity, and finally reply back to the response, reply. Okay, so sending the response to the reply. So that is a server and client activity, right? So assume that you have been building an application, such a server client application. So earlier, before RMI, what the developers will do, they have been using the concept called socket programming. That would be the hectic work. Completely, most of the work has to be done manually. For an example, like network establishment, like open the socket, and as well as the data serialization, sending and receiving the messages, data formatting, and error correction, exception handling. So everything has to be done manually. That would be the hectic work, and moreover, it's very hard and confusing one for the developers. To resolve this, they have been introduced a concept called RMI. It's very simple, and it handles all the activities in a automated way. So because you can consider, you can work only on the, you can concentrate only on the method call and as well as the business logic, instead of concentrating on the data serialization, data send and receiving the messages, data formatting. So you need not to do such kind of activity. Everything would have been taken care by the RMI. Okay, so that is why we have been using the RMI instead of socket programming when we come to the client server application. Okay, and what is distributed computing? Usually the RMI, it's also a kind of it is a part of distributed computing, which means that the work was divided among many computers that are connected in a network. So for an example, like one system trying to store the data, one system responsible for processing the data, and another system sending the reported, and all the computers are working together in order to complete a single task. That is called as a distributed computing, and RMI, it helps the Java programs talk in the same way. Okay, so that is called as a distributed computing. Let's comes into the component of RMI. Let me map with the same scenario, that office story, in order to understand the component with the real-time analogy. So look at here. This is what the architecture of RMI, which has several components like a client, server, remote object, stub and skeletons, and as well as a registry. These are all the major components of RMI. Okay, let's connect with our office story in order to understand this RMI. So assume that you are the manager and you have been acting as a client to give a commands. Okay, the manager always gives a commands to the office assistant, right? So just like that, the client act as a manager to he is responsible to gives a command. Okay, and your assistant who's sitting in a remote object, who's sitting in another branch and remote location. Okay, so what the assistant will do, he's been sitting in another computer or another branch or somewhere else. Okay, so who's going to do some process or do some job behalf of the client. Okay, so that is called as a remote object. The remote object, it acts as an assistant who's sitting in another office. Okay, the phone call you used to talk to them, right? So that is called as a stub. So the stub, it acts as a phone call which makes a calls to the remote object. Okay, and the contacts have been saved in your phone book. That is called as a RMI registry. Okay, and the network or internet that can connect both the offices. Actually, in between the client and server, it can be communicated over the network. It can be like an intranet or internet or anything, right? So it can be connected, and this has been responsible by the network layer. There is a network layer behind the screen, and that can help you to connect in between the client and server. Okay, so similarly, that RMI, it's basically like your phone to talk to your remote assistant. Okay, let's see what are all the components in a one by one, like a step by step. What is remote? We'll see what is remote interface, what is remote object, stub, skeleton, RMI registry, and all those things. Okay, let me start with remote interface. Actually, this is what the first step you will be creating when we develop an application. Okay, this is an interface which you are going to create it first when you are building an RMI application. Okay, so look at here. What is remote interface mean? That is remote interface. It's a special interface which has some methods that can be called remotely, and it's like the list of jobs you have been done by the assistant. Okay, and look at here. These are all the key points has to be managed whenever you are implementing the code. This is a sample code which is for the remote interface. Look at here, in the first line I have been importing all the packages for the RMI program, and I defined one interface called as an hello. Okay, and which extends a class called remote class. Okay, so what is a remote class means? This tells a Java this interface. Look at here, the hello interface. It's a special one, and it can be called from another computer. So this interface can be called by another computer. So that is why I'm using the statement called remote, and these are all the methods can be called by a remote. If I'm not using this remote, which means this method, it acts as a local method, and it restricts the other computer to access it. Okay, to make the access, I have been mentioned the extends remote. Okay, so it's very simple. When we write extends remote, which means that the Java tells that interface, it's a special one, and it can be called by another computer, and they can have the privilege to access the methods like a say hello. Okay, and at the same time, for each and every method, look at here, each method, whatever the methods you have been declaring inside the hello interface, that must be through the remote exception. So why? Because sometimes there might be a network problems can occur. Okay, because as I already mentioned that you have been connecting and communicating, the server and client was communicated over the network. It can be like an intranet or internet, doesn't matter. When we connect, when we are communicating between the network, within the network, there might be a chance of network problem. Okay, there might be a chance of network problem can be occurred. So it's like the connection breaks, or might be the server which is not been responding properly. So these are all the error can be occurred during the runtime. To avoid that, to handle such kind of scenario, we have been I mentioned that throws remote exception. So these are all the mandatory things. Whenever you are implementing the remote interface, that interface must extend a remote, and as well as every method must throw the remote exception. Next, we write the real classes that does the work. Look at here. Actually, in an interface, we have been writing the abstract method. In remote object, we are going to write the real classes that does the work. Okay, this is called as a remote object, or you can call it as an implementation class. And this is what the example code for implementing the remote object. And now you can see here we are using the we are inheriting the property from UnicastRemoteObject. When I declare when I define the class hello implementation, and at the same time I'm implementing inheriting the property from UnicastRemoteObject. You might be that might be common questions you might be asking. Why do we do that? Why do we do that? Okay, it's very simple. This class helps our object connect to the network. So this class helps the object to connect to the network. Okay, it's like installing a phone line for your assistant. Without this line nobody can call them, right? So if you are not using this UnicastRemoteObject, no one can call your methods, no one can able to call your methods. So that is why we have been using the UnicastRemoteObject. As I told you before, this class which help our object connect to the network. Okay, and at the same time I'm implementing the hello interface. So whatever the interface I have been defined here, that has been implemented, and you can write a constructor for the object initialization, and as well as the actual implementation for the say hello, right? So look at here I declared nothing. Simply I mentioned the abstract method, and here I'm moving on to the actual implementation for the say hello. It's simply returning the string like hello from RMI server. Now when the client calls this method, it doesn't talk directly. Usually whenever the client calls some method, it's not directly connected. it doesn't talk directly to the remote object. So instead, it talks to the helper object called as a stub. Look at here. See, whenever the client wants to talk to the remote object, so there won't be any there won't be any direct communication. So instead, we have to use some helper class. It's called as a stub, which is residing on the client. Okay. Yeah. The stub works like your phone. You can talk into your phone and sends your voice to the other person. So anything you can perform, right? The stub sends your request to the server and waits for the reply. So what the stub will do, it sends a request to the server and wait for the acknowledgement from the server. Okay. Actually, in older Java version, there was a class, there was a proxy server. There was a proxy server, and you can helper class for the server. It's called as a skeleton. But in modern Java, it doesn't require. In modern version like Java 21.17 or something, it doesn't require. So look at here. Since in Java 1.1, the skeleton, it's automatically handled by the Java runtime. Sorry, RMI runtime. So it doesn't require. It can be managed automatically. Okay. And what the responsibility of skeleton means, it receives a request from the stub and unpacks data and calls a real object. So what is unpacking means, it's called as an unmarshalling. So marshalling means whenever you are sending the data, you have to convert the data into the transportable format. That is called marshalling. Unmarshalling means converting back to the normal code, normal data. That is called as an unmarshalling. So whenever the stub, when the stub wants to call, when the client wants to talk, the stub will perform the marshalling operation. Look at here, it sends a method called request to the server, transfer the parameters and waiting for the result. So in the meanwhile, it packs the data. Before transferring the parameters, it packs the data. That packing data, it's called as a marshalling, right? So which means that converting the data format into the transportation format. Okay, that is called as a marshalling. So that can be performed automatically by the RMI. So you need not to write some explicit code. So that can be automatically managed in your you have been concentrating only on the business logic instead of writing the unnecessary code like open the port number, sending and receiving the data. Nothing you need not to worry about at all. Okay. So the next thing is RMI registry. Actually that so assume that think like a mobile phone. Think of your mobile phone. Okay. So when you want to call your friend, so assume that you want to call your friend, you don't remember the full number, right? So usually we don't, we will not remember all their your friend numbers or something, right? So instead, what you will do, you will be save the number on your friend name or something. Okay. So that is like a registry. So when you are not able to remember anything, so you can save it on your contacts. Okay. So when you want to call your friend, what you will do? You will be searching the friend name. Once you got it, and you can able to call your friend. So that is similar to that RMI registry. So what the RMI registry, it acts as a directory service that stores the remote object references. So whatever the remote object which is which has been created by the server, so that object reference has been named. There will be an alias name which has been stored in the registry that act as a directory. Okay, directory services. That is called as a registry. And look at here. So here we are. This is what the example. In order to implement this RMI registry, so what the server will do, the server which tells an object, actually look at here, this line, this tells that it tells the Java which tells a registry, save my object with the hello server, save my object with the hello server. Okay, so this is like your phone number, and I'm saving the phone number in the placement in the name of your friend name. So that is similar to it, right? Similarly, so I'm saving this reference object as in the name of hello server. Okay, so that is what exactly which has been done in the RMI concept. And in the meanwhile, the client. So how the client knows your name means with the help of the naming.lookup. So look at here, the naming.rebind, which is used to register the reference object in the name, and naming.lookup, which is used to find or locate the server, locate the object, okay, which is located on your registry. Okay, so this is what the RMI registry. Let's see. And the client, already told you that client program which is responsible to make a call. Okay, and the transport layer which handles the network communication between the client and server. And remember, this RMI works only on TCP/IP layer. Okay, that is called as a reliable data transfer. So which will not work in the UDP. So which works only on the TCP/IP layer of a transport. Okay, and it will automatically manages the connections and retrieving the data, and whatever the failures happen in between the communication, everything can be managed automatically. Okay, so that is the transport layer. And as well as the remote reference layer, what the remote reference layer will do, which will create the unique ID for the remote object. So whenever the server wants to register the remote object into the registry, so this remote reference layer which will create a unique ID for each and every remote object in order to track the references. Okay, and as well as it can manage the garbage collection. That is an automated garbage collection. And if there is any object which has been not been used, so that can be destroyed automatically. That is called as a remote reference layer. So look at here, this is what the architecture RMI flow. It starts from usually the client, the server creates a remote object. Look at here, let me show you. So usually the server creates a remote object and saves it into the RMI registry. So whenever so what is a remote object? This is what the task you are going to perform through over the network, right? So the client always look into the remote object, depends on the scenario, right? So what the server will do, which creates a remote object, and that was saved into the remote that was saved into the registry. And then after, the client look up the name in the registry. So the server already stored some registry, right? Stored the remote object, and the client using the lookup method that can able to find the searching, that is used to search the search the reference object. Okay, so once it is found, the client gets a stub. Okay, so look at here, whenever the client using the lookup method in order to find the corresponding remote object, and once it is found, it has been returned to the stub. It has been the reference has been returned to the stub. And then after, the client calls a method. Okay, the client calls a method, and the stub sends a message to the server, and the server runs a method and sends the result back to the stub, and the stub returns the results to the client. So this is what the actual flow of the RMI. Okay, so that's it. Let's end up with the advantages and as well as the limitations. Now, as you know, it's good about, let's see what are all the good about the RMI. It's 100% Java. It's as well as it's easy to use compared to socket programming. It automatically handles object transfer and communication and everything. So you need not to worry about that, right? And moreover, it's platform independent, because as I mentioned before, it was completely developed in Java, so that the same feature of Java has been replicated in RMI also, right? So the platform independent means once you have developed an application in one platform, that can be used and implemented, run in different environment. So for an example, assume that you have been developed an application in Windows platform. Using the Windows platform, the same application can be run in Linux and Solaris and Mac OS without changing any code. So that is called as a platform independent. Okay, so because of the Java nature. but it also have some limitations. It works only between the Java programs. So as I mentioned before, like when you want to make an applications like a server and client. So in that case, both the server application and as well as the client application must be written in a Java program. Then only it works. Okay. It can be slow when we go for the big data. Assume that when we have a huge number of data at the time, it cannot support it. It would be slower compared to the socket level programming. Okay. And moreover, it's not great for modern cross language platform systems. That's why today we mostly use a technique like REST APIs, microservice and all for the cross language support. Okay. So you can also see the RMI concept in real-time use cases like a chatting application, like a remote banking, file sharing system, and even in a cloud computing also. So basically, anywhere you need one program to call, another program running on a different computers. At the time, you can go with the RMI concept. So that's it. It's the Java RMI. It's very simplest way. In the next video, I will try to show some live demo. We will write some RMI client and server code step by step, and we'll see in next video. Thank you all. Thanks for watching.